Hi! As you can see by the title, I'm just going to talk about some of the things that foreigners do in Japan that annoy me. And I know I'm a foreigner and I do things that annoy me too. First things first, a little background thing. Okay, many foreigners come to Japan and they're like, oh my god, why can't we do this? Why can't we do that? I want to do this. Japanese are so strict. Blah, blah, blah. Listen, you're not in your own country anymore. You are in a new country. You are in Japan. There are things you need to get used to. There are things you need to understand. Rather than complaining about it all the time, you should learn to adapt. Why did you move to Japan if you didn't first learn about the culture, if you didn't first learn about the people, if you didn't give yourself an idea of the situation you were coming into? Why didn't you do a little research? As we say in Jamaica, little. Just a little research could have helped you. But anyways, let's get to the point. So these are some things that foreigners do that are really, really annoying. I have been guilty of them too, and I'm ashamed to say. But other things, y'all just need to stop and think. Stop and think. A lot of foreigners, they come here and all they do is complain incessantly about everything. The major complaint is staring. Why do they keep staring at me? Japanese people love to stare. Why are they staring at me? Let me ask you something. If you were just walking around your community back home in your country, right? And then all of a sudden an alien shoot down from the sky and just started walking around, and what would you do? First of all, you'd run away because it's a freaking alien. And aliens are scary. Second of all, you maybe stare or take out your phone and take a picture to show people, oh my god, it's an alien, right? Am I right? Yes, I'm right. Those are the exact same things you would do if you saw an alien from space pop down in America, the UK, Jamaica, or wherever the hell else you're from. True? Well, it's the same situation for Japan. Yes, unfortunately, we are aliens to them. In fact, Gaikokojin, which is what they call us, means foreign alien. We're an alien. I mean, for Jamaicans, that's no big deal being called an alien because there's this song, oh, I'm an alien. I'm a legal alien. I'm a Jamaican in New York. We grew up listening to that song, so being called an alien is synonymous with being a foreigner, so we don't care. But everyone else apparently has an issue with it, and they're like, oh my god, they're calling us aliens. Gaijin, I hate the word gaijin. Gaijin is such a horrible word. Get over it. It just means foreigner, alien, not of the same place. So yes, they see us as aliens. And what you have to understand, and what you should know by now, Japan is a homogeneous society. Homogeneous, that word. Which means Japanese, only Japanese. They are a society where the majority of the population is Japanese. You didn't know that? Really? The population of Japan is about 127 million people. Of that 127 million people, only like 2-3% are foreigners. And most of those foreigners are other Asian people who look like them. So then you have this minuscule, minute, tiny number of people who are black or white who don't look like them. And so to them, you could be the first foreigner they have ever seen in their lives. Or you could be the second foreigner, and the first foreigner they ever saw did something terrible to them or set a bad example for all foreigners. So this is why when they see you, it's like, oh my god, it's a freaking alien from out of space. And you just have to get over it. I must say it's annoying, and Japanese people, if you're gonna stare, right? If I make eye contact with you and you see me seeing you, looking at me, staring at me, look away. Don't keep staring at me. That's rude. I really hate that. They're like, I see you looking. I see you looking at. Don't do that, Japanese people, please. That's annoying. If you're gonna stare, stare. The picture thing, they love to take pictures of foreigners, especially like weird looking ones like me with hair like this. This is unusual hair for them. They have, I mean, they've probably seen black people before and white people before, but they rarely see hair like this. They don't see it on TV, they don't see it in magazines, so when they see it, they're like, oh, why? That looks picture. I mean, it's the same thing for like white people, because I have had white people just be staring at my hair specifically, because they're like, oh, it doesn't look like regular dreadlocks, but is it her hair? So I'm okay, not okay, but I'm used to the staring. It doesn't bother me, but that's just something you have to get used to, and it's really annoying because you feel uncomfortable and you feel anxious. I feel anxious all the time because I'm like, do I look good? Is this pimple on my face showing? Do I look appropriately dressed? But you know, you just have to get used to it. But I've seen comments where foreigners have said Japanese are racist because they stare at us. No, listen. Racism is a serious word. It's a serious thing. You can't just be throwing around racism or calling people racist for the slightest thing. Okay, so you have to be careful how you just associate persons with racism for minor situations like staring at you. That's not racism. You would stare at someone who looks different from the majority of your population too. So again, foreigners, that's just something you have to get used to. Complain about it, but then at the same time, put yourself in their position and understand why they're staring, and just try and look cute all the time and get over it. Alright, so that's one thing. Now the other thing is dating in Japan. A lot of people have made videos about this. I'm not going to discuss my experience because, to be honest, it's been a mess. I personally don't try to date Japanese men. Like, I don't. If I don't speak Japanese, and I'm not going to go and like try and date a Japanese man who doesn't speak English, because what's the point? You have to be able to communicate with a partner, and a lot of people are going and they see a Japanese guy and he's like, cool, a foreign girl, and they try and date, and then they realize they have nothing in common, they can't communicate. It's just a frustrating situation. So I haven't bothered. I have not put myself in that situation because it doesn't make sense. If I find a nice Japanese guy who speaks a whole ton of English and has not lived in Japan his entire life and knows other cultures and stuff, then I might, you know, try and date him. But that's not the situation for the majority of them. The majority of them, the ones who are interested in foreigners, a lot of them are just gaijin hunters. Like men and women, there are lots of gaijin hunters out there, and that's a term foreigners use for Japanese people who they want to experience and learn about other cultures, so they think they can do it through dating a Japanese. So they're literally only dating you because you are a foreigner. And that's not a situation I want to be in. I want somebody to like me because they like my personality, because they like hanging out with me, or because they like how I look. I don't want you to date me just because I'm a foreigner. So I avoid the gaijin hunters. I can't communicate with other people, even though there are some really... there are some really attractive Japanese men, and if you could speak English, we would make babies. We would make babies. But unfortunately, communication barrier is an issue, and I am not putting myself in that situation. A lot of foreign women and men, they come and they're like, I want a Japanese girlfriend. They get a Japanese girlfriend, boyfriend, and then things fall apart. And there are some huge cultural differences too that a lot of foreigners don't understand. And why do you keep putting yourself in that situation? But then again, it's also difficult because you're in Japan and you don't want to be single, and then all the foreigners here, most of the foreigners here want to date Japanese people, so you're just left with a few scatters of other people who are looking for other foreigners. So yeah, so you end up with a situation where you're single like me. But that's life. You move on. So there's that, and then the whole situation where a lot of people, especially women, foreign women in Japan, especially black foreign women in Japan, they get really upset when a Japanese man tells them he's not interested in them. To the point where I have seen and I have heard a lot of women say Japanese men are racist because they're not interested in them, because they don't have a preference for black women. I just said I have a preference for not dating Japanese men who don't speak English because of communication barrier. So am I racist? Am I racist for not giving Japanese men a chance? Some Japanese men a chance because of that specific reason? No, I'm not racist. So you can't turn around and call a Japanese man racist or a Japanese woman racist because they say they don't want to date you because you're a foreigner. They have their reason. It's not, and sometimes unless the person specifically says, I don't want to date you because you're black, I do not like black women, I do not like black people, then fine, they're racist. But if they don't want to date you because you're a foreigner and there's just something about you they don't like, that's their preference. And people are allowed to have their preference. A lot of Jamaican women come here, like a lot of my friends and just in general, and they're like, they don't want an Asian man because so and so and such and such. And everybody knows what so and such I'm talking about. A lot of you have that preference and make these assumptions and perpetuate stereotypes, right? A lot of you do that. But when it turns around on you and someone else and a Japanese person says the same thing, where they're just not interested, they're not attracted, you get all upset and claim racism. That's not fair. That's not cool. And there is one situation when the girl was like straight up saying, the guy doesn't like me because I'm a black woman and they hate black women and Japanese people are racist. And I took a long good look on the girl. And in my mind and to my friends, I was like, this girl is crazy. They don't want to date her because she's ugly. Sorry, not sorry, but you're unattractive, and that's probably the number one reason why they don't want to date you. And I'm not the most beautiful person in the world, but I can see when another person is unattractive, and homegirl, sweetie, you're unattractive. That's probably the reason why. So don't just jump to conclusions and say that it's because they're Japanese and you're black and they're racist, or because you're white and they're racist. No, don't stop the jumping to conclusion, foreigners. It's pretty annoying. It's pretty annoying. You have to understand people, communicate with them. Maybe they're not explaining themselves correctly. And yeah, I'm gonna admit, maybe there are racists out there. But not everyone is racist due to a situation. You have to communicate and find out exactly why. Find out exactly why and stop the foolishness. And to that girl, stop the foolishness, please. Please, look in a mirror. Look in a look. Mirror. Okay. Another thing that really annoys me about foreigners, and really annoys me about foreigners, is when they call Japanese people Japs. It's disrespectful, especially to the older generation who lived through World War II. And you may not know this because a lot of you come here and just don't do any research. Japan bombed Pearl Harbor, right, which is a part of the United States. United States got involved. And as a result, you know, you're angry, it's wartime, people are throwing around derogatory words. One of those derogatory words is Japs. To you, it might just sound like a short version for saying Japanese, but it was a derogatory word. So it's equivalent to using the N-word. I'm going to say it. It's equivalent to using nigger, basically. Not nigga, like what people casually, like black Americans casually use in rap songs and amongst each other. No, it's equivalent to using the word nigger. So don't use the word Japs. It's derogatory. It's what American soldiers used to call Japanese as they were killing them. And yes, there was a war going around and the Japanese were wrong for their part in the war, but at the same time, you don't want to use a word like that. Now that we've had over 75 years of peacetime and everyone is friends again, don't use a derogatory word from the past. You don't want people to use the word nigger? Don't use the word Japs. It's simple. Just don't use it. Don't use it. And if you didn't know, now you know. The more you know. The NBC. Maybe some people don't know that. Moving on. Inappropriate behavior by foreigners. It's simple. And I have been guilty of this one, where you go out and you have a good night and then you're just loud as hell. Now, Japanese also do this. They get drunk and they get loud as hell, which is, you know, okay. But foreigners get super loud, and foreigners like to fight and break stuff. You know, there are in some parts of like Yokohama, maybe Okinawa, the areas popular for foreigners, you will find bars and establishments that say no foreigners. And you're thinking, oh my God, that's so racist, you racist bastards. No, let me tell you why. It was explained to me. So what previously probably happened was there were foreigners in the bar, especially in like Yokohama, where there are a lot of U.S. Army servicemen. Sorry, U.S. Army, but you guys need help. And what they probably did was cause a commotion, break a few things, fight with some patrons, you know, just a big old mess. And when things like that happens, the establishment, the bar, the place gets a bad reputation, so people won't go there anymore. So me as an owner, I would be like, wow, I'm not going to let those type of people back in. Unfortunately, you can't discriminate against people. So it is kind of discrimination based on a bad assessment of one bad situation in the past. But that's what they do here. So that was a situation, something like that happened, and they were like, you know what, we're not going to let you people back in. You people, by you people I mean rowdy foreigners who will break things and make my establishment lose its good acclaim, make my establishment lose money. So yeah, that's why. So when you're in Japan, you have to be on your best behavior. You can't be an asshole. I don't like using bad words. You can't be an ass. You can't be a jackass. Don't be a jackass when you're in Japan. Set a good example for your people. Remember what I said about the homogeneous society, where Japanese, you will probably be the first foreigner a Japanese person has ever seen. You got to set a good example. If you don't set a good example, then from now on they will only associate bad things with every other foreigner they see, because that's silly, Japanese people, but that's what they do. So you just have to understand that concept and just be on your best behavior at all time. Don't break the law. They have laws here. They love their laws. They're very strict with their laws. Japanese people follow their laws. So you should follow their laws too. Jaywalking, it's a law not to do that. I don't do it because I don't want to get in trouble. Drinking and riding your bicycle is illegal. It's against the law. You can get arrested for it. People do it. So they set a bad example. Japanese do it too. Riding your bicycle with an umbrella, it's against the law. You can get fined for it. People still do it. Listening to headphones, people still do it. So you have to follow the laws and set a good example so that Japanese won't see you as a foreigner breaking the law and be like, oh, all those foreigners, they don't follow our rules. We follow the rules. Another rule thing. This is another thing that foreigners do that really get on my nerves. My friends do it too, and they annoy me. I'm constantly cussing them, but they're like, so I have a whole video on garbage collection, trash collection, how to like gather your garbage for garbage days. Foreigners are just like, screw that, throw out everything in one thing. You have to separate, you have to recycle, you have to put things out on the right day. If you don't, you will get a letter. My friend's like, I don't care, I'm a foreigner, I don't care, I can't bother with them. I have to take out my garbage on this day, I don't want to take out my garbage on this day. And they just, and then you're supposed to use the correct bags. The cities, well, some cities, if you live in rural cities, then they'll have a specific bag. My bag is red for burnables. You're supposed to put in those bags, and that concept is you pay for your trash. So you buy the city trash bags and you pay to have it disposed by using the bag. That's the concept behind it. My foreigner friends are just like, no, I didn't get, they just use the garbage bags that they get, like the plastic bags from supermarkets, and they put it in there and then throw it out. You're not supposed to do that. Stop doing that. It's annoying. Stop it. Not because you're a foreigner means you can't follow the rules. You live in the people's countries, follow the people's rules. It's simple. It's not rocket science. Stop being annoying. Stop being annoying. And following rules. When visiting temples and shrines, please be respectful. Remember, it's a holy place to them. It's a very sacred place to them. I have made this mistake, and it really hurt me inside making a mistake. I went to the most sacred Shinto shrine in Japan, and walking around, I got hungry and I started eating. You're not supposed to. And it just didn't connect in my head. It's something all Japanese people do because they visit shrines like all the time. The kids are taught from they're young. And I just felt so stupid, and I was frustrated with myself. And I get why Japanese people are annoyed with foreigners when they see things like that, because they're like, look at this dumbass foreigner at our most sacred shrine, eating food when the dumbass isn't supposed to be doing that. So just, that's why it's important before you visit something, you learn the etiquette, you learn the rules, you try and follow them as best as you can. And if I would have known if I got the English translation for the little paper guide, but I didn't, and it said right there, do not eat in the shrine. So when you visit places in Japan, they give you guides. Just read it before you enter, and just don't commit any like faux pas or break any rules or anything like that. Just be careful. Please be careful, because then you don't set such a bad example for foreigners. And by the way, speaking of bad examples for foreigners, I would like to know why there are African men, I don't know what country, but I know they're African by their accent, who are in Tokyo and constantly trying to grab at people to get their attention. If you could stop doing that and setting a bad example for my people, that would be great. Every single time I go to freaking Tokyo and I go to like Shinjuku or I go to, what's that, Harajuku, there are guys who will literally come up to you and be grabbing your arm to try and pull you somewhere to get your attention, pull you into their store. Remember the thing I said about the homogeneous society where you are probably the first foreigner they've ever seen? So if this big black man is pulling you away somewhere and scaring the shit out of you, scaring you, then guess what? That's going to set a bad example. In your mind, you're just going to think, big black men will try and pull me away places. And then other big black men will have to suffer for it. So if you guys who are doing that in Tokyo could stop before I personally punch one of you in your freaking face, that would be great. That would be great. But yeah, that's also why black men have a hard time in Japan with like how when they're around people, they're kind of like nervous. It's because of that. It's because in the news, they're always there are lots of the times they're talking about those kind of men and the dangers of Tokyo society and how you have people who try and take away things from you and rob you and like con artists and stuff. So in their heads, they're like, oh, black people are bad, black people are bad. So we, as foreigners, when we come here, we have to change that idea that they have towards us. And it's really annoying, but once they talk to you, once they get to know you, it's a great thing. So that's another thing. It's also important to communicate with Japanese persons. I do that. I'm lucky. I'm very, very lucky. I'm an ALT, so I work in a high school. So automatically, I get to communicate and talk to teenagers. So I understand teenagers, Japanese teenagers. The teachers, the wonderful teachers I work with, I understand them. And then I also work at an eikaiwa, which is a language conversation school, and I have students from 3 to like 40 odd. So I get to talk to, a lot of times, just regular conversations with Japanese adults, which many foreigners don't get to do. They have Japanese friends, but all they do is go out and drink and party. But here I get to sit down and have real conversations with adult people. So they teach me about Japanese culture and the ways of their society, and I teach them about Jamaican culture and the ways of my society. And it's just this culture exchange that really broadens their information about the world and broadens my information about Japan too. So because of that, I don't jump to conclusions with every situation that happens in Japan. I don't jump to conclusions and say everyone's racist. I don't jump to conclusions and say everyone hates me. I understand why they're behaving a certain way. And I know other people aren't as fortunate as me to understand that too, because that's not their working situation. But you really have to take a moment, stop and think about it and look at and look and think, why would they do this? Don't jump to conclusions to the first bad thing. Think of all alternate reasons. Just think, why? Maybe this. Do a little research, learn about Japan, learn about Japanese culture. Get older Japanese friends, talk to them, ask them to teach you about Japan and what's going on. It's not that hard. And yeah, maybe that will make your life a little better. I don't know. But a lot of people take for granted the fact that they're from countries that are multicultural, different people from different countries. Japan isn't like that. Like I said, Japan is homogeneous. Japanese. Most of the Japanese, mostly other Asians, and then the little percent of white and black people and people who don't look like Asian, don't look like them. So as a result, you are the first foreigner they will ever see, especially if they're in the rural areas. And as a result, you're probably the 5th or 7th foreigner they have ever seen, but they had bad experiences with the old ones, so they don't like you. That's the reality of the situation. But you know, if you seriously don't jump to conclusions and you don't let things, every little thing get on your nerves, then you will have a better time living in Japan. So yes, that's my advice. I hope this video helped. Please stop being an annoying foreigner in Japan. Like, please. Till next time.